Hello and welcome back to Carry On with Criselda. I am so grateful to have you listening today. This is a safe place where there is no shame, no blame, no guilt, and no judgment. We want to ensure that everyone listening is going to leave feeling encouraged, inspired, obtain a sense of hope, and perhaps acquire some good strategies to have in your arsenal. If this sounds good to you, please follow and leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. And stay tuned to the end for a special lighthearted message. So, what do we mean by drop the lies? Everyone goes through tens of thousands of thoughts per day. When you search just how many in a day, the number varies from source to source with a range of 15 to 80,000. Who knows what it actually is? The point here being, I think we can all agree it's a lot. The alarming thing about it is that about 70% are believed to be negative. 70%. That is just astounding to me and quite annoying when I think about it. I hate how easily negative thoughts can come to mind over positive thought. I mean, can you imagine a world where the majority of the population are walking around every day thinking positive thoughts 70% of the time? I wish it came easier and was more natural to have a constant flow of positive, empowering thoughts on a daily basis. But we all know that's just not the case. And of course, we have our own backstories and past experiences to draw from, which conditioned us to think, react, and feel the way we do about different people, situations, and ourselves. We know we cannot change other people or control what they do or say as much as we may want to, nor can we control what happens moment by moment. Sure, you may be able to control certain situations depending on what that might be, but in general, we typically cannot control what happens. So that leaves you. That leaves me. I cannot tell you how important it is to think about what you are thinking about every single day. If you ever want to have a fulfilling life, if you ever want to rise above your situation, if you are tired of being in a depressed state or feeling less than, you have to change your thoughts. It's not easy at first, especially if you are not already in the habit of doing that, but with practice and repetition. And I don't mean in the course of a weekend. I mean, you have to decide for yourself that you are no longer going to be controlled by just any thought that enters your mind. Of course, if it is a good thought that makes you feel good, have at it. That's what we want. But in relation to any bad thoughts, you don't have to indulge in it just because it entered your mind. And it doesn't mean that you are a horrible person for thinking such things, especially if you don't act on it. But really, the good and bad thoughts we're talking about here today are the thoughts that you have about yourself. Which thoughts empower you and which thoughts don't. Any thoughts you think about yourself that are negative, consider them lies. They are lies. You may be thinking, but I have done some terrible things, which makes me a terrible person, which leads me to think bad thoughts about myself. Well, who hasn't done things that were maybe a bad decision? We've all done it. Well, what if you are still living with the result of that bad decision? Well, that doesn't mean you should keep beating yourself up over it. Every day is a new day. Every day you have the decision-making power to choose not to accept the constant reminders, the disempowering thoughts, ideas, and lies about how you're not perfect enough, you're not smart enough, you're not creative enough, you're not nice enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not handsome enough, you're not unique enough, on and on, blah, blah, blah. And these are either your own thoughts or thoughts that were implanted by someone else in your past or present. A parent or relative, a teacher, a classmate, a coworker, some random stranger. But you cannot allow what anyone says, including you, to accept any negative thought as the end-all be-all. It is to your health to rise above it. Your thoughts have more power than you may realize. I mean, it's pretty simple. Think about a bad thought about yourself long enough and you're going to feel bad. think about an empowering thought about yourself, well, that just increases your confidence and feels a lot better. Now, there are some people who struggle with thinking positive thoughts about themselves and actually think that beating themselves up with negative thoughts will make them feel better, but they're misleading themselves with a lie. Deep down, no one really wants to think negatively or feel bad about themselves. And just like I said in the first episode, if you haven't listened to it, you should take a listen after this episode. The fact that you are listening right now tells me that you are searching and wanting to improve your life. You want to be better. You want to feel good about yourself, as you should. Think about someone you know or know of who is inspiring. It could be someone famous or someone you know personally who is just a powerhouse of success. Think about the likes of Tony Robbins, Oprah, Michael Jordan, or an Olympic athlete. Do you think they don't ever deal with negative thoughts? Of course they do. The only difference is they decided at some point in their lives that they're going to take control of their thoughts. They decided to not let their past experiences, disempowering thoughts, or bad emotions paint the canvas of their lives. Knowing how successful she is, can you imagine Oprah having habitual thoughts like, why would anyone listen to me? Who am I to think I can make a difference? There are plenty of talk show hosts and interviewers out there already. Why would they need another? You know, when you get a chance, you should read about her struggles and her start in life. She is definitely an inspiring woman who did not let her past experiences dictate what kind of life she wanted for herself. And a part of that is taking control of the negative thoughts. There is a quote where she says, "The greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change his future by merely changing his attitude." Do you see? It is a choice, your choice. You cannot be successful and have a negative outlook on yourself. Her life story and the things she had to overcome just shows you how she absolutely had to deal with negative thoughts. And I'm sure it wasn't easy at first, but as I said earlier, with practice and repetition, you can learn to recognize it quickly and choose to reject it. So, how does one do this? How can you change the thoughts from negative, disempowering to positive and overcoming? Well, first, it starts with a decision. Decide for yourself today that you are going to be proactive instead of reactive with your thoughts. A good idea would be to take some time, get to a quiet place where you can contemplate and go through the different negative thoughts and emotions that you come across on a regular basis. If you want to jot this down, you can pause here for a pen and paper, except if you're driving or operating machinery, you can do it later when it's safe. Write down whatever comes to mind in a column. Be honest with yourself. Make sure you include everything. Then, to the right of your column, make a second column and write down positive thoughts next to each negative thought that you would want to feel or think in place of that negative thought. Even if you don't agree with it now, even if you have a hard time believing it, write it anyway. So if under your negative thoughts column you have, "I am not smart," then under the positive thoughts column you could write, "I am highly intelligent." In essence, what you are doing is constructing an affirmations list for yourself. So you could do two things with this list. The first is to use it as a plan to have a positive thought ready to replace any negative thought the next time one creeps into your mind. It's important to be aware of the thoughts that you have throughout the day. When you get a negative thought, you are basically going to recalibrate yourself. And the steps to do that are to recognize, rejuvenate, release, and reinstate. Let me explain. First, you recognize the bad thought or emotion that came to mind and decide which positive replacement thought you are going to use. Second, you rejuvenate by taking some deep, slow breaths. About 3 to 6 should be good. The deep breaths help to calm your mind, and it will be the action that transitions you from entertaining negative thoughts to choosing positive thoughts. Next, you release the negative thoughts. Imagine it disappearing like a wispy cloud dissolving before your eyes, and say to yourself how grateful you are that you can take control of your thoughts. Lastly, you reinstate yourself back on track with the new positive thought. Now, we recognize that sometimes it is beneficial to contemplate the negative thoughts that you get in order to get to its root cause. But that's for a time when you are feeling balanced, right? This exercise is meant to stop the negative emotion or thought in its tracks from lingering in your mind, thereby cementing your perception of you actually being that negative thing. So the second use for your list is to go over it on a daily basis, at least once per day, more if you like, and read the positive thoughts about yourself. Use I am statements such as, I am highly intelligent, I am creative, I am capable. Say it with conviction. Even if it's hard to say it anyway. Say it every single day. Look, you've been conditioned by hearing the negative thoughts play out in your mind thus far. It's time to rewire your brain and recondition yourself with positive thoughts. And the negative column on your list, you can use it to say things like, I am no longer ugly. I am no longer fearful. I am no longer unlovable. You can use both columns to your benefit, but eventually it would be ideal to just concentrate on the positive affirmations by repeating them over and over. Remember, this is not going to be something you do over a weekend or one night. In order to combat and reverse the probably years-long cycle of indulging the negative thoughts, you must be relentless in your resolve to develop a positive outlook on yourself and drop the lies. Thank you for sticking with us. We truly hope this has accomplished what we set out to do with this episode. Your listenership is beyond appreciated. If you know of anyone that this could benefit, please do them a favor and pass it along. It helps them and it helps us too. We are happy to bring these kinds of messages to encourage and help others. Hey, just checking in with you. I thought our second date went well, just like our first date did. But I'm sorry, I have to ask, did you follow us yet? Look, I'm not usually ready to jump into a long-term commitment so soon, but I feel like we were having a good thing going here. I've been having a good time, you've been having a good time. It's only natural that this relationship progresses by you following this podcast. I mean, I'm not asking for the world here. Just for you to follow and devote your undying love and attention to this podcast, and that we are your one and only who take the top spot in your heart and ears. Okay, that's all. I'll be here waiting. You know where you can find us, wherever you get your podcasts. See you soon.